What is up, everyone? This is the Quantum Anomaly coming at you with another episode of the WIP-Lash. We've got the Razorthorn build log number 5, and it has been a productive day in Starmade indeed. Now, at first glance, doesn't look like a whole lot. Started doing some first pass greebling, or detailing, not even greebling really. Detailing and breaking up the shape. This is, these pods I would consider a first pass, just kind of roughing things out, figuring out where I want stuff, breaking up some shapes on the back slope. Let's see. This area over here is what I would call kind of a second pass. We've got, this larger tube spot. We've got a sphere back here, some decorative supports. I got this larger support kind of growing back here. And yeah, then over here, this is kind of what I would call a third pass. Now, this is nowhere near final, but again, just kind of demonstrating how I break up shapes. So these, I'm thinking maybe might be some kind of officer's quarters or maybe diplomat quarters. I don't know, something. Give them some windows. Of course, they won't have the greatest view. They'll be looking out mostly at, giant cannon and arm pieces, but get a little bit of view of space, maybe even some windows down here and on the sides. Just livening it up a little bit. I've got, let's see, this tube filled out now. I think I am going to do some kind of gravity tube with this. I'll probably have teleporters on the ship as well, but I haven't messed with those yet. So, again, just breaking up detail, adding some volume, adding some depth. I removed and then re-added this lower arm structure. I'm not 100% sure I like it. It is a little bit too fat on the bend there. I might shave that off a little. But it does go all the way back to this area. I've added some more. Again, breaking up shapes. These are very rough first pass runs. They'll get plenty of more detail as we go along. And let's see. Let's see. So here's some second pass detail. These kind of anchoring points, some striping, the little pod being placed up here up top. And again, some more wires and flushing out, adding a little bit of depth to this landing bay area, and some depth on the side here. And you can kind of see where this tube comes up is going to be right up next to this landing area and the first run of the crew quarters, which will probably be just under at least the flight deck crew quarters. No work on the cannon or the side docking parts yet because like I said, kind of got sick of those, and I wanted to get a better feel of what the rest of the ship was going to look like. Plus, I wanted to start playing around with some roleplay elements and figuring out, just kind of getting an idea of where I want things other than systems to go, because there's a lot of room on this ship, and I've got to be careful with it. So the one thing that I did work the most on right now, and it's hard to get a good viewing angle, is the inner section for the engines. And the engines are also going to kind of dictate where the power core goes. So here you can see this runs all the way through like that. It's, like I said, it's hard to get a full view of all of it. I'd probably have to take these chunks of power and thrusters out. But I want it to be at least, a smidge realistic. Like I said earlier, I don't want a flat wall on the back with just engine thruster blocks sticking into it. I want to plug them into, a power core. Maybe I actually think I'm going to run the power core, since it will be central to these three engines. I think I'm going to run it through this open area, at least part of it, as far up as a little bit above the core, kind of where the end of that tube is there. So run a nice big kind of generator thing, I don't know, some kind of crazy hook-looking engine or something, or power unit. Don't know how many rotating bits and stuff I'm going to have on it just yet, but that's kind of that idea. Let's see. I do have this tube going up into this area now has this big empty sphere, and these empty pods. I have no idea what I'm going to do with the space. Right now, I'm just chunking out some places for detail later, and trying to make it, this top piece, since I do have it really flat on the bottom, was trying to break up some of that. Of course, it looks way better when you have proper lighting on it. Well, of course not, because it's gray. But it looks better when you have some decent lighting on it. There are a few angles that I can get. But it does have a much better view from the side now. It's got some depth on the bottom, which I really like. And we actually have to zoom quite a ways out to get this all in frame. So there, now it's got a little bit better side profile. I should probably be on the other side of this, show off the way it looks with the gun there as well. Again, just a monstrous amount of room in this thing, and I wanna fill it up with lots of space for, I'm gonna have to have at least a decent sized med bay, plenty of different types of crew quarters, and again, just kind of breaking up how the detail is going to look. Now, of course, the side pods are going to be really smooth until I get the finished version of a docking piece in there, at least the template finished, and then I can start detailing the template from there. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like a whole lot, but this is kind of where some of the longest stints of time go, because I delete it and re-add it and delete it and re-add it and check lines and check, how it looks, and I fly way out. And I spend probably 2/3 of my time just looking at the ship, and then from there, that remaining 50% or 30% is probably split fairly evenly between adding and removing chunks of blocks. I think I redesigned this bottom section. This hook got redesigned 3 times. It was added and removed twice, and then there was one other time kind of in between where I was trying to figure out, I didn't want it again to have some kind of crazy phallus syndrome. So always on the lookout for that. Always trying to keep it from being, just a cool looking ship with a really awkward piece on it. Just, yeah, no. Doesn't fly right for me. And then, of course, I spend probably the last, I don't know, maybe hour or so figuring out how I wanted the front of these engines to look, and just experimenting with some different shapes and stuff. So, but it's coming along. Progress is progress, These spire pieces were also kind of difficult, and I'm not even 100% sold on them. Of course, the angles get kind of chopped up with all of my additional vertical rods from copying and pasting and sizing. I throw rods down just to get an idea of size and scape. You can see that, I start with just kind of some square blocky bits, and then I go run a smooth on them and fill them in, see how it looks, and then, usually take big chunks off of them from there and redo them again. I'm not sure if this spot back here is going to house another engine or not, maybe a smaller engine. I have to be careful because I don't want to run too many different types of engine styles. It's going to be interesting if I do a vertical engine kind of in between those, power and thruster pylons. If I did some kind of rectangular vertical engine there, then I might be able to get away with using that design a couple of times over here. But I don't want it to get too cluttered in the back, and like I said, I don't want to use too many different types of engine styles, because I don't want it to break up the theme too much. So that's kind of where we sit right now. I am going to wait for probably the next hotfix, which will be our, let's see, cargo update just dropped, and the hotfix did not adjust power, so we're going to be looking at the next release, which is going to be 2 weeks from yesterday, from Friday. So in 2 more weeks, power should get another adjustment, so I'm not even going to begin filling out, the gun or the, inner areas with actual modules until that update drops, because I'd like power to get to a little bit more stable space. There's all kinds of discussion on the forums if you're interested in that. I've made quite a few suggestions myself, and I even flip-flopped on it because I didn't realize how broken power was in this last patch. It did actually end up being pretty broken. So I'm gonna hold off on doing that because I don't want to have to refit a ship that's not even built. It's just something kind of in progress. So that'll be a little while on that. And in the meantime, I've just got a ton of space to play with. And I've been making more space because I've been adding on these, large rectangular areas, which will get smoothed, and they'll get edited and changed, and more bits will be added on top of them. But you got to start with kind of the widest boundaries that I want. You get a little bit of chunk there that I was experimenting with. So, whoop, I keep flying through the sidewalls there. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to also be a gravity elevator, because it'll come up into, the crew area and the flight deck, and then link all the way back down to the opposite end near the core and engine bay. Then we also have this whole area, which links up to the crew quarters and also runs down and back into kind of the engine room, or the power core / engine area. I have not thought about, or I have thought about a little. I'm not sure where I'm going to put jump drives on this thing, because that's another room that can look really cool if it's all engineered up. Maybe up in the front. I mean, I do have some room up there, but it doesn't really make sense, like jump drives are, a thing that make total sense anyway. But it just doesn't feel right. I have thought about actually wiping out the sides next to the flight deck and adding a couple of expanded areas off the sides there, and those could possibly be used for jump drives. I could also use the space that I have up here where this tube will enter. Some of this space here, and maybe some of the space down into the engine room along this path next to the engines could also be used for jump drives. I don't know. I'm not sure. I do know that all of what's unused by core in this area and reactor will be probably med bay. There's probably going to be some engineering space back here so that ships can come in and get repaired. Like I said, crew quarters are going to go down through there, and I can probably fit quite a bit of crew in there. And then all of this extra space, of course, I've got to leave room for power capacitors and power beams and all of that other stuff. So, and I'm not going to be using any of this space in here, which is kind of a shame, but also really kind of cool. So I've got to make sure that the ship is largely self-contained without the side bays. And, by that I mean I, of course, could always add, like I said before, like troop landers and other things in those side bays, but I want the primary function of the ship to be dictated by just the core vessel without the side arms. So that leaves the front is probably going to be a lot of power, and that's another reason for these hallways, is so that I can run power lines all the way front up to this area and get the most out of that. Because otherwise this would just be like capacity, and I wouldn't have a whole lot of good lines in the ship that go out. I mean, I guess I could run from the tip here back to the back wall there and run, some three-dimensional L ships through there. But again, just trying to maximize some efficiency, and if it's a dual purpose gravity elevator / place to run some power cables, then so be it. Anyway, I think that is going to be all for now. It's nice to have you guys coming and checking this out and watching the build log with me. I'm having quite a bit of fun working on it. So if you have any suggestions or comments, feel free. I try to answer everything as quick as I see it. So let me know what you think. And to everybody else out there, just keep building.